Welcome to Win the Day from Back to the Bible. I'm your coach, Pastor Nat, and today we're going to talk about living our freedom in Christ. Our cat hates the pet carrier. As soon as that door opens up, the cat sprints out, never to return again. But wouldn't it be odd if I opened up that door and the cat refused to leave? I think so. But we can be a lot like that. You see, Christ rips open the door of our prison cell of sin. But many of us refuse to leave. Or we leave and we go right back in. This is what we want to talk about today in Galatians chapter 2, beginning in verse 17. Paul writes, "But if in our endeavor to be justified in Christ, we too were found to be sinners, is Christ then a servant of sin? Certainly not." Okay, so this is a little bit of a confusing passage, and it seems like there's a lot of debate about what exactly Paul was saying. The New Living Translation puts it this way: "But suppose we seek to be made right with God through faith in Christ, and then we are found guilty because we have abandoned the law. Would that mean that Christ led us into sin? Absolutely not." We always have to take a verse in context. When we do that, it makes a lot more sense. So what's happening? Well, if we are truly saved by grace, then by living a life free from religious activity in order to save, we are not sinning. Because Christ as God, He will never direct us to or promote us to sin. So let me just clear up a little bit more confusion here regarding works, grace, and salvation. As we said early on at the beginning of the study, there tends to be two different extremes when people err in the side of Christianity. On one side, they go to legalism, which Paul has been writing about. What happens is people drift back to the works of the flesh to save them. They go back to religion and religious activity as a means of saving ourselves or keeping our salvation. The problem is, whenever we add anything to the gospel of salvation by grace through faith, Paul calls it no gospel at all. All you're doing is returning to your prison cell. Religion cannot save. It will only disappoint you and leave you frustrated. So that's one extreme in the error of Christianity. But on the other side, people err with another action of the flesh, and that's of license. There are some today who would say what people were saying 2,000 years ago, that when we experience this salvation by grace, hey, we have permission to sin. After all, God is gracious. He pours out grace upon grace to His children. So therefore, when we are truly free, we are free to run wild all over God's green earth. Here's the problem. God did not rip open the prison cell of religion to make us a slave to sin. That's why Paul continues in verse 18. "For if I rebuild what I tore down, I prove myself to be a transgressor." Paul here seems to take the focus off of Peter and put it on himself hypothetically. He says, okay, so what about me? Let's just say I go back to the way of legalism. That's why he said, if I rebuild what I tore down. It's not Christ who is the transgressor. You see, He's not the one who is prompting me to sin. It's actually me. What Paul is saying is if you go back to your old lifestyle, that's not Christ. That's on you. If you are freed by Christ, you are truly free. But then you should not walk into the trap of legalism or license. If you do, that's not on Him, it's on you. Christ frees us from the chains of legalism. He frees us from the prison cell of sin. So friend, how are you doing with this? Have you returned to the prison cell? Have you been going back to that cell of legalism? That process of adding to your salvation through your works? Or have you returned to that prison cell of license, abusing the gospel as an excuse to sin? Listen to me. Both license and legalism neuter the grace of God. It distorts the gospel. It is no gospel at all. The true gospel says that Jesus Christ came, He died, and He paid for our sin. He offers us this at no cost. So when you believe that, you get to experience soul-saving and life-changing. We truly are free. The question is, will we live like it?